I just want to welcome you to the podcast today. My guest today is Rizwan Malik, and he is a senior vice president of Sothebys Realty in Canada, and he's also a star and a co-host of HGTV's, let me make sure I get this right, HGTV Canada's Hot Market. So, hey man, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you on here.
Thanks for having me. What a great introduction. Wow.
Well, thank you. First of all, you look too young to be senior vice president of anything, but congratulations, man. It sounds like you're on a rocket ship somewhere, and things are looking good for your career. That's great.
You know what? I usually, when I show up to shoppers on Seniors Day, I just give them my business card, and I say, hey, listen, I'm a senior VP. I may not look like a senior, but can I get the discount? Doesn't always
I don't think that's going to work. Well, I am an older guy, as you can see, but I've been in real estate for a long time. But it really warms my heart to see someone like yourself that's doing really well.
Well, and, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast today. Anyways, there's so much to talk about. And again, this morning we hear again they're going to lock us down. The provincial government.
Finally, the big box stores that are going to suffer a little bit, and I think, frankly, it's okay.
I'm confused. I don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, one day we're open, the next day we're closed. I remember last March when COVID first hit, I predicted, actually did a video on YouTube where I predicted that the market was going to soften, prices could go down, and man, was I wrong. I mean, completely wrong. Such a strange time we're in. You know, we've got a global pandemic, and yet the real estate market in the GTA has just been on fire for the last year.
I mean, a 36% increase. It's ridiculous, right? Like, but again, it's not something that's sustainable. This growth is not sustainable. And I know I've now been selling real estate for almost 15 years. And when I first got into the business,
you do look younger than you are. You definitely do.
when I first started, well, I was 20 years old when I started. So
okay, all right.
I was an infant. So when I first started, it was basically, you know, this bubble's going to burst. This bubble's going to burst.
Yep.
And in my experience, this bubble is just floating. It's not a bubble that's going to burst. It's just floating in the upward direction, right?
I like the way you put that. It is unusual, but I mean, it's great to be popular in terms of world cities. Yes. I think there's a combination of factors that have kind of all come together in that perfect moment. We're not the only ones. I mean, there are many popular. Look at Vancouver. There's places in the U.S. like San Francisco where prices are out of control. But we're popular, basically, and there's a lot of money in the world that's looking for a place to go. And so I think it's been just a happy thing. And low interest rates, of course, have been a big deal.
I think that's what's driving, right? Everything. So even though people might be out of a job, people might be laid off, but they have a lot of buying power right now. So it's like, okay, cool.
Right.
The banks are willing to give us money. They're willing to give us a lot of it.
1.6%. Even they went up a little, 1.8%. It's practically free money.
It's free money, and the Bank of Canada announced it's not going anywhere for until 2023 approximately. Right. I mean, I don't see the slowing down in any way, shape, or form.
I think you're right too. Yeah.
But also, the government realizes, you know, our housing market has been one of the largest driving forces behind our economy for a long time now, and it will continue to be, right? So it's just, I just feel for, let's say, you know, some of my other friends who I went to university with, and they're trying to buy their first home.
Yep.
When I bought my first home, it was $322,000.
Exactly.
Now I can't even find them a 300 square foot condo downtown that's $322,000.
You're right. You're right.
So, you know, things have gotten so out of reach, and, you know, that's who I feel for. But anyways, we have tons to talk about.
We do.
So fire away, sir.
You had a great segue there because one of the things that we want to talk about today is there is a trend for sure in Toronto and also in the 905 where people are moving out, especially first-time buyers, because it is somewhat out of reach. Even if you've got great income, you're two people, you've got great income, and you want to buy a house that's at least $1 million, even if you have $200,000 to put down, you still have to qualify for an $800,000 mortgage in the city. So what I've found, and even it used to be that people from downtown would move out to the suburbs, they'd maybe move to Mississauga or to Richmond Hill, but they're going further now. They're going further afield into places like Hamilton and Stony Creek and Kitchener and Cambridge and Barrie. And do you find that that's a trend?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we've been seeing that for a long time. And what's actually kind of interesting is all of these areas that you just mentioned, like Stony Creek, Cambridge, Hamilton, Guelph, they are also starting to get out of reach. So to the point where, I typically won't go out all the way to Cambridge to help clients just because, I predominantly...
I did last year twice.
Yeah.
I would have never done it. I would have never done it in the past, but I did this time.
I only did it because it was one of my closest friends from university. Right. Her and her family were moving out. She was pregnant. So, it's like, okay, you know what? Don't worry. Let me go and help you.
You and I might have been in bidding wars competing against each other.
Well,
I'm not kidding.
And that's my point. So, like, we were in Cambridge. The average property, every property that we saw would get anywhere from 12 to 18 offers. So, yes, the starting point was significantly lower than what you'd started here in Toronto, but by the time everything was said and done, you were ending up at a ludicrous number, even for Cambridge, even for Hamilton, even for Stony Creek. And that's the whole thing, right? So now it's the same principle and the same philosophy that's applied in Toronto, or the GTA here is now out there. So it's like you sell your property now for, let's say, $150,000 over asking. When your neighbor goes on the market, they're expecting that 150 plus.
Exactly.
So it's like as a buyer, you're always chasing the market, right? And I always try to educate my buyers and say, listen, if we're going to place an offer on something and we're not going in to win, then don't put the offer at all. Because all you'll do is the two people who actually want the property, they'll start bidding against themselves, driving that price higher, but you're not going to get that house. So that next house that comes up, the expectation is going to be that much higher because that will now set the benchmark. So if we're not going in to win, don't be the 15th offer or the 16th offer as a throwaway offer for no reason.
Right. That's right on. Right on. That's great advice, and I agree with you 110%.
Yeah. So there is this max exodus, obviously, and I think people are making a very permanent decision based on this pandemic. I mean, we've been in it now for a little over a year. We just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of our 2-week lockdown. How amazing is that?
Let's celebrate.
We just had its 1-year anniversary. God bless the pandemic. Yep. But the reality is, by the time everything is said and done, this is still not permanent, or at least we don't think it's going to be permanent.
Which brings up an interesting point.
Forever thing.
Interesting point. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But interesting point, because a lot of people are working from home now, as I am, and maybe you too, but I am for sure. And there's kind of a logic that's going on right now. Well, we can move to Cambridge because I'm going to be working from home anyway, so I don't really need to commute down to Yonge and Bloor for my job because I'm going to be working from home indefinitely. They don't see that could be only temporary, and they may get the call where they have to start commuting back to the city.
Exactly, and this is my belief. I think going forward, I think there will probably be some sort of flex plans or flex schedules where maybe 1 or 2 days a week you can work from home, but the rest of the week, your employer is going to want you to park your bum back in the seat at the office because employers are locked into a 10, 20, 30, 40-year lease where they have a floor, 2 floors, 5 floors, half a tower, which is worth millions of dollars in leasing, right? So
you're right on again.
They're not going to say, okay, well, you work from home. We're going to continue to pay the electricity and keep the
for nothing.
For the once a month that you want to show up to work.
Right.
It's not going to be like that, right? Like I think there are certain industries and certain employers who will allow you to work from home certain times of the week or a month or whatever, but they're going to want you back at the office. And that's where it becomes an issue for me, right? Like people are making a very permanent decision, in my opinion, on something that's still quite temporary. Yes, it's gone on for a year. Yes, it may go on for another half a year or however long, but the reality is things will go back to normal or a new normal one day.
We hope so.
And I'm hopeful too, but the reality is, like, people will expect you, your employers will expect you to show back up at the office and work from there. So, like, my whole thing is, yes, you've now sold off your condo at a discount. You've now bought something competing with 15 or 16 or 18 other buyers.
Yep.
And then now you're going to need to sell that off because, again, it's all about supply and demand. Right now, downtown condos are not high in demand. Therefore, if anything, instead of buying that house in Cambridge or buying that house in Stony Creek, you're better
buy the
off buying a condo downtown.
Exactly. They don't see
there.
this. They don't see it. This is the time to buy a condo in downtown Toronto. There's very few bidding wars. The prices are down a little bit. It's a perfect time.
It's the only time to buy it, right? So it's just it's ridiculous. So for me personally, like it's about not being so short-sighted and saying, hey, listen, working from home is the new norm. I don't think that it is. I think it is what we're dealing with right now, just because, you know, it's what we have to work with. However, I don't think it's a forever thing. And I think
you're right.
As that demand or as that push to move back downtown starts in the next year, 2 years maybe, these areas like Cambridge and Guelph, and they're going to correct themselves again. They'll correct themselves back down to what the value was, and they'll be further hit than that downtown condo that you would have purchased, right?
I think your logic is right on. I really do. Yeah. And the other thing to take a look at is a lot of these large companies, big companies like Google and a lot of other tech companies are currently expanding in the downtown area. They're either building new buildings or leasing mega floors on new towers that are under construction today. So these are companies who are committed to having that downtown space. They're not. Yes. If they weren't, then they wouldn't be doing it. Well, so they're going to go ahead.
And that's just it, right? So with a lot of these tech companies as well, like you think about it and you realize, okay, there's servers and like, you know, firewalls and all this stuff. Yes, they can give you a laptop to take home, but you're not as protected. Their intellectual capital, like all that stuff is not as protected as it can be working from the office setting, because that's where they have all their infrastructure, right, to protect themselves. So, you know, it's one of those things where, like I said, I don't think that this work from home trend will be an indefinite thing. I think it will show up in a way where it becomes a part of someone's schedule moving forward, where, you know, employers will say, okay, listen, for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, or 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, we are locked into a lease. Maybe when we renew that lease, we won't take up as much office space as we have right now. Maybe. But for now, come to the office.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, I've been working from home for a year, 13 months, and I've had enough. Like, I miss the human interaction. Zoom meetings are great. It's wonderful to talk to you. Isn't technology great? But at the same time, do you find, I find that I still go to the office to pick up my mail once in a while. And it's so great to actually be in the same room with human beings and to be able to say hi and maybe not shake their hands or maybe bump elbows.
Give them an elbow bump.
Yeah, give them an elbow bump. And there's some actual real human interaction. I miss that. We're social creatures.
Oh, absolutely. And like, you know, yesterday I was speaking to one of my neighbors who's a partner at a law firm and whatever, and we were talking about the exact same thing. And she said, typically, like if they were at the office, she'd have some of her associates sit on a call, listen to a client meeting on mute, just to wet their toes or just to get an experience and to get ahead. She's like, we're not doing any of that anymore. She's like, now if I need something done, instead of giving someone else work to do or to be like, hey, do you mind just like quickly writing this memo for me or whatever to give them the experience? She's like, I just do it quickly and I send it off. Yeah. Right? So I think
that's not good.
I think productivity breeds productivity. And if you don't have anything going on and you're sitting around next to the photocopier and you hear the copier going and you hear your colleagues running around and like someone's negotiating a deal here, it just breeds, like it gives you that fighting spirit to be like, okay, I want to be doing something right now. What can I do? Maybe I can pick up a weekend open house. Maybe I can do a showing for someone.
Oh, open houses. I miss those. I used to do a lot of open houses. Yeah. And of course they've been banned now for a long time for good reason, I think. But I miss them. I really do.
I think these are unprecedented times. We're in uncharted waters. I think what's happening is absolutely necessary, but I do feel that one day soon, we will get back to normal.
I hope you're right, my friend. I'm hopeful, cautiously optimistic, and you still see some very strange things. I was watching the Blue Jays on the weekend. They had a game down in Texas, down in Dallas. And it was the first game of the season, and the stadium, they had the roof open. There were 70,000 people in the stadium watching this baseball game, which the Jays won, by the way. But and hardly any of them were wearing masks. Most of them were not. So again, you've got this dichotomy of in the States. Now, maybe they're just being reckless. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not a medical
But you think
person.
about it, and you look at that, and their numbers are going down, right? And they're at like 40% vaccinated. So like
yes, they're way ahead of us.
Way ahead of us. So I mean, it is what it is. Like that's neither here nor there. But yeah, like it's. I just we can concern ourselves with is what's going on here, and like it's one of those things where I hope one day soon we return to normal.
You gonna get a vaccination? You gonna do it?
I'm on the fence about that right now. To be honest, I'm hoping.
Rizwan, come on, man.
I'm hoping for herd immunity, and I think it's okay.
I think I'm going to do it. I'm a little bit older demographic, and I could actually go, I think, in the very near future. So I'm going to try it. I know someone who went. He seemed to be fine. Realtor friend of mine, he says it took like a minute, but it's AstraZeneca. So again, there's issues maybe with blood clots. I don't know. Yeah. What do I know?
Yeah.
But,
no, exactly. No medical advice here from me. Yeah.
Well, you're a young man.
I was gonna say I can give you real estate advice. I just can't give you medical advice.
No medical. Yeah, me either. So anyways, man, you and I are on the same wavelength because I think the exact same things. I think that the market is going to, the other thing that's going to drive our real estate market once we get back to normal is there's a couple of factors. Immigration into Canada, which I'm so pro-immigrant. It's a big country and it's mostly empty. But that's been kind of shut off for a year now. And I just saw somewhere where the Trudeau Liberals are going to allow up to 400,000 people a year into Canada, starting as soon as COVID is finished. And we know that out of those 400,000, about half of them are going to come to the GTA. Guess what? They have to live somewhere. Exactly. They have to. Exactly. So there's your rental market or condo market. It's going to come back in a tsunami, I think, once we get back.
Exactly. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that's what we can expect, right? Like right now, vacancy rates are super high because we don't have. Is this your dog?
Yeah, working from home.
Yeah, that's.
We'll edit that.
I think vacancy rates are.
Welcome to my world.
Vacancy rates are super high right now because we don't have the international students. We don't have immigration, and also there's no need, right? There's no drive for people to stay downtown. There's no reason. So I have a lot of friends who've moved back to their family cottages, or they've moved in with family for the last 4, 5, 6 months or a year, for however long they need to, because they realize, listen, I don't need to be spending $2,000 or $3,000 a month in rent downtown. And the reality is, I can even move within the same building into the exact same unit type for significantly less. So why am I paying this?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's going to, and again, it's a temporary thing, but it's hard to kind of get a gauge on it when you don't know, is it going to be, originally we thought it was going to be 3 months and 6 months, now it's a year, now it could be a year and a half. We don't know.
Yeah.
But I think you're right on. I think all that stuff is going to come back.
Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody who came to you today and they're living downtown, they're living at Yorkville, right, the Yonge and Bloor area, and they say, you know what, we can't afford what we want to do here. We're thinking we're going to move to Barrie. What would you tell them today to do? Now, obviously, there's a lot of factors.
Yeah, right? Lots of factors. Like we talked about, like maybe they'll have to go back to the office one day or whatever. My whole thing is I'm very much lifestyle based. So my approach to real estate is very different. It's lifestyle based. If you're doing 70 to 80% of your living in a specific area, I say that's where you need to move. And if you need to and if you can't compromise on that, then you compromise on certain things, certain elements. If you want to be in a big detached home, it may not happen right at Yonge and Bloor. You may not even be able to go into a home at Yonge and Bloor.
That's why I moved to Mississauga.
Condominium. Yeah, you go into a condominium. But if you're doing 70 to 80% of your living in Yorkville or in downtown, I feel like spending 2 hours a day commuting,
I couldn't
5 times a week, 20 times a month, it's just unnecessary. The fatigue, the strain, the lack of focus, it's just it's mind-numbing. Like I've done that. I did that for 2 years.
Did you?
And I realized I never want to do that again. Funny enough, I live at Yonge and Bloor, so I wouldn't trade it for the world. But that's my neighborhood, and that's what I love. I've lived on King West. It wasn't necessarily something that I liked. I've lived in Liberty Village. I've lived all
Liberty
over the
Village.
city.
little bit too overbuilt, I think. Liberty Village used to be great, but you can't find parking. There's, especially if there's a soccer game. I mean, forget it.
Oh, it's definitely overbuilt, and there's only like one main artery that gets you in and out. So
Strawn Avenue, exactly.
It's ridiculous. But you know, so my whole thing is like, if someone wants to do that, and Barrie is where they're going to do 70 to 80% of their living, I'm in support of that. Like, you know, I can't. People have to decide what they're going to do and where they're doing, and where they're doing it, right? So like, it's one of those things where it's not necessarily for me per se, but you know, if they have family up there, if they have a cottage up there, if they're moving to a cottage, if they're moving to a recreational home that's winterized or whatever, they just want a big, huge yard for a dog. Like they have kids and they want kids to run around and play and like, you know, maybe smell some fresh air because it's not so fresh downtown. You know, like everyone has their...
It's not so bad.
Yeah, everyone has a million different reasons as to why they want to do what they want to do. But like my thing would be, absolutely. You know, like it's right now, like typically I would always suggest to young people especially, or anyone in general, that, you know, you don't sell real estate. Like if you can afford to hold on to your first property and rent it, a bank will still give you financing on a second home. If you refinance, if you remortgage, if you are able to pull that equity out, try to keep the first property and build on that. Build your portfolio as much as you can. And typically, even if you don't have positive cash flow and you're breaking even, that's not bad as an investment, and just have some tenant or have a tenant pay your mortgage off for you.
Exactly.
Today, right now, because vacancy rates are so high, owners or landlords are being forced to kick in a little bit of money. So there's about a shortfall of, you know, $200, $300, maybe $500 a month.
Right.
But that is still better than having to pay the full $2,000 or $2,500 that you typically would, right? So I'd rather still be collecting $1,500 or $1,700 a month in rent and putting in the $300-$400 just to maintain that investment than to going ahead and getting rid of it, because it's not the market to do it.
Yeah, I think the wealthiest people I've met are all people who have never sell. They buy properties and they just keep them, and they go from 1 to 2 to 4 to 6 to 10 properties. Yeah. And that's what it takes, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Absolutely.
We're on the same wavelength. What can I say? So tell me a little bit about Sothebys. I know that there's a brand that's really grown in Canada over the last, I would say, 10 years. I remember when they first came on the scene, it was quite a big deal. And how did you manage to hook up with them?
So I was working with one of Canada's second largest developers, like very prominent builder, and I was there. I've launched a lot of high-rise buildings for them, about 14 towers,
wow,
2,500 units, almost $1 billion in real estate. So tons of work.
Yeah.
But you know, for me, I was ready for a bit of a change, and I wanted to go back to, like, you know, working one-on-one, more transactional based, one-on-one with clients, buyers, sellers, all that. Right. And so Sotheby's felt like a natural fit. You know, people perceive us to be exclusively dealing with luxury properties only. And yes, we focus on luxury. However, I always say that we are the standard bearers for luxury service at all price points. So, you know, like I said, my best friend needed a property in Cambridge. Not only am I driving out to Cambridge, but I can tell you it wasn't a luxury property in Cambridge that we were buying. We were buying her entry-level home for her and her family.
And that's a long drive from Yonge and Bloor, let me tell you.
So I must have loved her.
I think so.
She's lucky. But, you know, so having said that, you know, like for me, it's always come down to, you know, irrespective of the property that you're selling, you treat everyone's home, everyone's investment, everyone's sale with equal amount of attention to detail and care, standard of care. Because, you know, it's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to go ahead and for my listings that are over 5 million, I'll do all the bells and whistles. Listings under 5 million, I'm just going to do photos. Right. No, it's one standard. So it's floor plans and high definition photos and Matterports and 3D imaging and videos and, you know, night photography, all that stuff, websites. This is whether the condo is $500,000 or the property is $10 million. I mean, that is what people come to expect, and that is what they get, at least for me, because that's how I feel. To someone,
that's awesome.
To the seller, to the homeowner, that's their single most expensive asset. So whether it's 500,000 or it's 2 million or it's 10 million, to them it's a very important sale. So I can't be the judge and say, hey, listen, it's not quite at this price point, so therefore you'll get short end of the stick. It's not fair.
I appreciate your values. I really do. I wish every realtor thought that way. I really do.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. So, Rizwan, tell me something about yourself. I know you probably work like 18 hours a day because you've got a lot on the go. What is something about yourself that nobody would know, like an interest? What do you do when you're not working? Like, do you have a hobby or the things you like to do that your people who think they know you would be surprised to find out?
It's funny.
I know you have a dog. I know I saw on your Instagram. I saw you have a little dog, a little cute dog.
I do have a little teacup, micro teacup Maltese, Luna Malik.
Okay.
But so I will say this: I live a very public life. So I, especially after the show and everything else, like there was this outpouring of support and love and kindness from all these people that I never even knew before. So what's been great about all of that is I've been able to share more and more about my life with people who follow me or who follow along with the journey and everything else. And like it's been really, really wonderful. So, there really is no secret.
We know you.
Yeah, there's no secret. There's no secret hobby or anything else. But one of my biggest passions in life, when I was a teenager, I started horseback riding.
Oh, okay.
And I loved it then. I loved it now. I gave it up for a little while. I had a bit of an injury at the gym, and then I fell off the horse as well, which further accelerated the injury and made it worse. And so I had to get shoulder surgery last year, but I'm finally back in the saddle over the last few months. And I've decided I've signed up for 5 competitions this summer.
What?
So, yeah. So getting back into the swing of things, like full on. So right now I'm riding 3 to 4 times a week, just getting ready for these shows. So that's amazing. Definitely a huge passion of mine. So that's how I like to spend my time off. And to be honest, on your earlier point that I'm working 18 hours a day, I will honestly say that I'm so blessed to have such great work-life balance. So, I know that, yeah, it is.
In our business, that's great.
I do
and hard to find.
Yes. And I do a lot of working, and I do a lot of work, but I also do a lot of play because I think it's really important. And at the end of the day, like, yes, you can spend your entire day working away, but for what, right? Like I can only eat so much. I can only spend so much money, and I'm beyond comfortable and beyond happy. So it's good to just also take a step back and say, listen, this can either keep going or you can also go out and enjoy what you worked so hard to achieve.
Those are true words. I've met so many agents over the years who were top producers, but they got burned out. And how did you get burned out? Well, I was working 7 days a week for the last 5 years and working 12 hours a day. And eventually you get to the point where you don't want to answer the phone. And I think that work-life balance is so hard in the world of real estate. It's so hard to find. It sounds like you found it. I think that's just fantastic. It really is.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Although I'm not going to go horseback riding. No way, man. I'd fall off and break my neck probably. Honest to God.
You know what? And that's what drives me crazy. And like, rightfully so. Like, I totally understand where you're coming from. Half my friends are like, when I tell them, I'm like, oh, I'm out of breath, or I'm really, really fatigued or tired. Why? The horse is doing everything. Oh yeah. Because that's exactly what they do in the wild. They just set up little courses for themselves and just jump around. In the wild, they eat, they graze all day, they sleep, and they poop. Those are the 3 things that they do, right? So there's no horse out there setting up a course, jumping around just for fun, and I'm just like, I just happen to be there for the ride. It doesn't really equate, but you know what? It's okay.
It really sounds fantastic, really. Out in the fresh air, man. There's nothing better than that.
Yeah.
That's great. See, there's something I'll bet you a lot of people didn't know. I'll bet you that's something about you. Now people are, hey, wait a minute. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the horse isn't doing all the work. Oh, it is Rizwan. Okay, awesome.
Well, listen, my friend, it's been a real pleasure talking to you today on the podcast. Thank you for your insights in the real estate market. It is truly an unusual time we're in still. 14 months ago, I don't think anybody in the world would have predicted that we go through a year plus of global pandemic with shutdowns and lockdowns and then back and forth and different color coding. I can't even keep track of it anymore.
Yeah.
But no one would have predicted that. But here we are. Things are still good. People are buying real estate. People are selling real estate. There's lots of pre-construction going on there, which are apparently selling out. A lot of people are taking that longer term view. And there are trends within the market, I think, where people are moving further out to not just suburban, but beyond suburban areas. And I think your words are wisdom, because people need to take a long-term view that, if you buy that house out in Bowmanville, that's great, and you might like that lifestyle for a while, but is that truly what you want? Because you may get called back to work. You may have to go back to work in the city. And are you really willing to do that commute for an hour and a half each way every day? I know I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
like everybody's different.
Go out to Bowmanville, no problem. Maybe you rent there for a year.
I love Bowmanville. So nothing against Bowmanville.
Absolutely, but that's what I'm saying. Like, go out to Bowmanville, go out to Hamilton, go out to Cambridge, go out to Guelph, go out wherever, Barrie, wherever you want to go. That's not an issue. Do it for a year. Rent it for 2 years. That condo that you have downtown, you know what? Rent it out. And if it has to sit empty, or if you have to rent it out for $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, and kick in the rest of the money just to basically bring it to zero, who cares? That's a smaller price to pay than to have to sell off your investment at a discount, buy something at its peak, and then pay the closing costs, and then do the reverse again. It's just, to me, it makes no financial sense.
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, sir. You have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll do this again soon.
I would like that. Have a good one. Nice to talk to you, and have a great day, Rizwan. Thank you.
Bye, Rand.
Bye.